Hello, everyone, and thanks for inviting me to come and speak today. Wow, I'm following that. A guy coming from an industry that bends sheet metal, right? But we do have some pretty exciting things to talk about. The world that I live in at GM, I'm responsible for connected cars. And connected cars at GM have been really in place for a long time. OnStar launched almost 20 years ago. The original connected car before people really talked about connected cars the way we do today. So I'm going to tell you a few things about what this whole space means to our customers and to the industry. Just a little backdrop, some things that have happened. 1 year ago yesterday, we built the first 2015 Chevrolet Malibu at a plant up in Michigan that had 4G LTE technology built into it. Since then, we've launched on over 30 vehicle nameplates. By the end of this year, 4G LTE will be on virtually everything we build in North America. And we're pretty excited about that because of what that's going to bring, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the rest of the presentation. This past January, we introduced the new Volt, which is going to be launching later this summer. With more range, more capability, certainly more connectivity than the previous generation. And then the Bolt, the Chevrolet Bolt, which is a 200-mile range vehicle, which we're also pretty excited about. And just last week, we also announced a broad commitment to Apple CarPlay and Google's Android Auto, starting with Chevrolet and also our Opel brand. We announced the broadest deployment of that. So we're putting into Chevrolet Spark, a $14,000 vehicle, CarPlay, Android Auto, and 4G LTE with Wi-Fi. Who would have thought that that kind of technology would be on a vehicle like that? So what's been going on with OnStar? OnStar is as I mentioned, nearly 20-year-old service. And that service has been, for the most part, what we consider a vertical service. Right? It's safety, security, peace of mind. Most people recognize it, right? It's a well-known brand. It's a very strong brand in the industry. The issue is that it was very vertical and not very expandable as a platform. So we created something we call Connected by OnStar. So we build on the notion of OnStar as a powerful, robust, reliable brand, but we wanted to talk about it in terms of a platform that we could build connected services off of. And so this platform now, and you see this in our advertising, we see it in our everyday lives as we engineer products and services. We want to make sure that we're thinking about our roots and we're building on that as we do things like 4G LTE. Wi-Fi and 4G LTE was the very first step in building additional services onto this platform, Connected by OnStar, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go on. So what is happening with 4G LTE? Well, it certainly has the benefit of something like built-in Wi-Fi, right? And the notion of Wi-Fi is a big deal for especially family or small businesses, and the things that you can do with it are actually pretty unbelievable. The fact that you can bring products into the car and use it as a hotspot. But it does bring a more powerful connection, and I'm going to spend some time in some future slides talking about what does that powerful connection really do? Because at the end of the day, we've now got a platform. We have OnStar core safety and security on it. We have Wi-Fi, and then there's some other things that we can start adding to it without changing the fundamental underlying platform. And that's really a big deal. It's very important. So far what's happened in the last year, this is actually outdated now. This 500,000 number is approaching 900,000 this month. We're going to have about 900,000 active vehicles on the road. Very interesting stat in the second line. 99% of our customers are accepting the terms and conditions of our service. So the suite of services that we offer, from OnStar through Wi-Fi to all of the other things, a very strong push by our customers to say, yes, this is something that we want. You can see the data plan usage that we're seeing out of that. More than 70% are on recurring monthly plans, which of course is good because we've got to have some revenue to pay for the investment that goes into the platform. Interestingly enough, 9 out of 10 people knew about Wi-Fi when they came into the dealership, which is something that we're really interested in continuing to promote, because we want people ultimately to buy our vehicles, and we know they have a choice. We offer this as a competitive advantage, we believe, and it's great that people are coming in asking about this. They know about it already, and we're putting commercials out now that talk about this. We have one very popular Chevrolet commercial now that shows kids in the back seat watching video or watching a movie or a video, playing a video game in a Chevrolet, and then we move them to a competitive brand vehicle and everything stops working and the kids say, hey, I want to go back in the Chevy. And it's kind of a cool commercial, very clever. And our customers so far have been very satisfied as we've launched this. So something that's been touched on by some of the other speakers, but it's worth mentioning because GM is a 100-plus-year-old company, and we've gone through this is actually a slide from Forrester. We've gone through these different ages, right? The manufacturing, the industrialization age came late 1800s, early 1900s. Distribution came along. It really propelled us post World War II. Information age has been here with us. And now we're in, according to this Forrester report, the age of the customer, where people are really setting a new level of expectation for products and services. And for us, connectivity is a key piece of that, enabling what's going to happen with vehicle purchases. People are going to expect that they get access to the vehicle in a variety of ways that connectivity then brings an enabler to, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Some trends, and I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but mobile device growth, you've already heard the story. You heard it from the other speakers here today and in other tracks that are going on. The Internet of Things, really big deal. We're keeping a close eye on it. And that wearable space and these other connected systems, there's definitely intersection points that are going to happen with the vehicle that we want to absolutely pay attention to. The lower right stat on tablets, very interesting. So well over half of US households have a tablet. Interestingly, less than 10% of them have a connection themselves to a wide area network. They're Wi-Fi enabled. And so we took advantage of that stat in building our vehicles. So we allow people to come into our vehicles. We can connect up to 7 devices in one vehicle. And that's a very powerful message to people. It's like, well, you don't have to have 7 different plans on those devices. You can have one plan in your vehicle, and you can attach it to your AT&T mobile share plan in our case. Your vehicle can become one device and then distribute that connection to other devices. So because of all of this that's been going on, we're now, in the organization that I represent, Global Connected Customer Experience, we've now taken all of these customer touch points and built them all into one organization. So all of our call centers, mobile interactions, web interactions, dealer touch points, and then in-vehicle interactions are all in an envelope of people. We have about 2,000 or so professionals in our organization. That doesn't include people taking phone calls at our call centers, but about 2,000 people engineering and planning and developing and marketing this connected platform that we are now going forward with globally. And it's a pretty exciting space. This is a typical month. This is a snapshot from March. What happens in our world? Over 5,000 crashes. I'm not going to drain this whole slide. You can read it, but that's certainly at the core of what we do. Amazingly, 122,000 people somehow forget their keys in their car or for some reason can't get in their car. Almost 4 million navigation routes are delivered through our turn-by-turn platform. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Remote Link, but that's growing amazingly well. We crossed the boundary in February. We crossed 900 million transaction boundary in February, and we're going to be over 1 billion by the end of this year for the platform. And that's a pretty remarkable stat. So Remote Link, this is a mobile app that we introduced about 5 or so years ago. We engineered it initially for the Chevrolet Volt. When the Volt came out in late 2010, early 2011, we needed some way to highlight the fact that this is a different kind of vehicle. It's an electric vehicle, but it has a range extension through a battery charging a gasoline engine. And we wanted people to have access to that even when they weren't in the vehicle. Well, when we started showing it to folks, they said, well, why can't I just have this on a regular car too? So we said, yeah, we can do that. So we make this app available. It's available on Apple and Android devices. It's free. You buy the vehicle. You get unlimited use of this key fob function. with your vehicle for 5 years, you don't have to pay us a nickel. You can use it. It comes with your car. Interestingly enough, and you can see the stats, we had 20 million transactions on that mobile app in 2013. In the first quarter of this year, we had 30 million transactions. So, that's growing substantially. And in fact, when we have cold days in the winter, and I know we're here in Dallas, so you don't have cold days, but you have hot days, and you want to cool down a vehicle. But in the northern states, when there's a cold day, we actually see some days where remote starts come in at 40,000 requests an hour on this app on a cold morning. People wanting to warm up their car before they get into it, and that's pretty amazing that you can do that. And I use this. I travel a lot. Sometimes I'll land in Shanghai or somewhere in Germany or wherever I'm going, and did I lock my car back at the airport in Michigan? And I press that lock button and get some peace of mind behind that. So the other thing that we're doing with all of our services is we're offering, we realized that rather than just custom designing all of this stuff, we decided to build what we call remote APIs around the vehicle. Remote APIs allow us to have these touch points so that we can build our own apps like Remote Link, but we can let other people use these APIs as well. So we give access to third parties to get access to the vehicle, whether it's for diagnostics, vehicle location, locking and unlocking a vehicle, and providing other services that you may want to do. And those APIs sit out in the cloud. We manage them securely. They go through our back office, but it allows third parties to come in and do some interesting things. And I'm going to talk about some examples of these. Telligis is a company that we work with very closely. It's a fleet services company. These folks use these APIs that I just talked about and offer fleet services to customers. So about 25% of the vehicles we sell here in North America are fleet. They're either to small businesses, large businesses, rental vehicle fleets, or what have you. And a lot of these businesses want to keep an eye on what's going on. They want to be able to see if there's a truck available close by for a delivery or a pickup. How much is it idling? Is it not being maintained properly? Is the oil life low? Is there a diagnostic code being set and it needs to be sent to the shop or whatever? And so Telligis plays a role in doing that. Well, when they do that on competitive vehicles, you have to install $400 to $500 worth of hardware in the vehicle, and then they can turn these services on. In our vehicles, they just have to make sure that they keep OnStar checked on the order sheet, and all of those same services that are provided through our network device can provide this through the remote APIs that we present to third parties. We're providing a service that we announced at CES this year called At Your Service. This is a service that basically connects customers to retailers. So one of the interesting things we found out is, we have a familiar button in the vehicle, usually on the rearview mirror and the overhead. People press that button over 300,000 times a month driving, looking for a hotel. They're driving somewhere. They haven't planned the trip. They push the button and say, hey, I'm going to Chicago and I need a hotel downtown. 300,000 times a month we get them there by routing them and potentially even getting them in contact with the hotel. What At Your Service does is we've now got a relationship with Priceline, so we tell that customer and say, hey, look, we know you're a couple hours away. If you'd like, we can contact Priceline and see if we can get you a good rate at that hotel and book it before you get there. And so that's something that we've introduced, and we're partnering with other folks like, and you can see the names here, Dunkin' Donuts and Speedway, things that are related to the vehicle ownership and driving experience, because at the end of the day, if there's an opportunity for us to offer value to get lower cost fuel or a free coffee or whatever, we see that as a value add that again creates stickiness for our customers to want them to come back and continue to use our services and purchase our vehicles. So something else that we introduced at CES is what we call a smart driver assessment. This is a service that a customer can consent to us collecting information. They have to agree and consent, but we can collect information to really assess their driving capability. How good of a driver are they, right? And you say, well, what in the world would you want to do that? Well, because there's opportunities for the customer to save, for example, with an insurance company. So we have a relationship with Progressive. We take that 90-day snapshot, and after that period, we provide the customer that information. Just the customer, not the insurance company. They look at their smart driving score. They kind of see what they did. They make the choice. They choose, if they want, they can send it on to their insurance company, and the insurance company can offer them a discount. If they're not necessarily a great driver, they can choose not to send it. But we put the power in the customer's hands, and we see this as an opportunity for us to continue to build more relationships with other insurance companies. We've started that with Progressive. So we're just getting this rolled out. It's starting actually this summer. Something we're doing in diagnostics. We've been delivering diagnostic emails to customers since about 2004 or 5. And that's been great. You get a monthly email from your car telling you all about your systems. What we've now introduced is something called proactive alerts. Proactive alert technology monitors the vehicle systems. So from the time you start the car, every so often we have a cadence of information that gets collected and pulled and sent to servers in our back office that gets analyzed, run through algorithms, and we can make determinations on starting, charging, and fuel systems about what their relative performance is day over day. And if we see a bad trend, something heading in a direction that we think is something that's a cause to notify a customer, we can let them know ahead of an event occurring. So we can actually take that information and we'll, for example, let them know that their battery's starting to get weak. So don't wait for a cold morning to go out there and see that your car won't start. We want to prevent a walk home, what we call a walk home situation, by letting them know ahead of time. So if we see this trend, we can send them an email, send them a text message, give them a heads up before the event occurs and say, look, you better do something in the next whatever days or weeks if you want to avert a potential problem. Again, very powerful. Back to the conversation we had earlier about platform, able to collect data, high bandwidth, low latency. We can collect data from vehicles every several minutes at the kind of scale that we can do this with the cost structure that we can, the same way that we collected data once a month to send an email before with our older technology, and we're pretty excited about the possibilities. So another thing that comes up frequently, I get a lot of questions. In fact, this came up in the panel discussion yesterday. Well, why are you building all this stuff in the car? Can't people just bring a smartphone in and do this stuff too? Well, you can do some of this stuff. You can't do all of it. But the point that I want to make is that customers really want all of it. They've got a smartphone, they got a digital life, they want to bring that into the vehicle and have the vehicle make that digital life work better. But the things that I'm talking about need some built-in technology so that we can bring the vehicle back into their digital life. That's really important. You know, you can't track a stolen vehicle if the only means of communicating with the vehicle are in your pocket or your purse. And so we see this as not an either or, but a both, right? We have the relationship now, phone integration that I talked about earlier with Apple and Google, that's going to make broadband technology even better. And we want to continue to add value-added services on the built-in side because we think this is really important to continue to enhance services, even when your phone's not in your car with you, or if you're sleeping. If we want to do something to interact with the vehicle in the middle of the night, we can do that. Global opportunities are out there. We're in North America, and we're in China now with 2G technology. We're going to 4G technology very soon in China, and in Europe we're going to be launching 4G LTE later this summer. But you can see the growth that's coming is pretty amazing in the connected vehicle space. We're pretty excited about it. We're anticipating about 75% of our vehicles are going to be connected by 2020. GM sells about 10 million vehicles a year, give or take, and this is a pretty aggressive stat, but we're absolutely committed to connecting as many vehicles as we can. We already talked about the Europe and China launches of 4G LTE, and you know, this is all built on predicated on the fact that connectivity is something that we need for new things that are coming down the road. And so we're going to spend a lot of time making sure that we put this connectivity in place so that we can leverage it later for car sharing, for autonomous vehicles, whatever might come, because it is something that's going to be required. So just to close out, this is my last slide. Network of the future. We're here talking about network of the future. We need, in order to bring this to life, we need to continue to drive low cost in-vehicle enablers, right? If you're going to put this on a vehicle, like I mentioned, we're on a $14,000 Spark. We sell vehicles in Asia that are sub $10,000. So the connectivity costs have to be a very appropriate percentage of the vehicle. We can't put hundreds of dollars worth of hardware on a vehicle. in order to drive the volume. So that's something we're going to continue to drive. We need this capability to be on par with consumer devices. So that's something else that we're spending a lot of time making sure that we're on track with that. And we need the continuation of a high bandwidth, low latency connection. That's something that is critical now to delivering this capability for both our apps that are in the vehicle and in the cloud. And we know that we're not going to drive the network of the future ourselves. You know, there's a lot of bigger players, there's a lot of other use cases out there, but we need quick adoption in our industry. You know, we spend a lot of time engineering things, and there's a lot of time that the vehicle spends out in the marketplace after it gets built and launched. 10 to 15 years is not uncommon, so we want to make sure that we're here at the table talking about what our needs are so we can leverage all of this as part of the larger ecosystem. And that's it. So thank you very much.